Today we are going to start a Zentangle project, and this project is going to have two parts. We're going to have a black and white Zentangle, and we are also going to be doing the same Zentangle on an overhead transparency and putting some tissue paper behind it to create a stained glass effect. So the very first thing that you want to do is look at your handout and look at the basic steps of a Zentangle, and I'm going to walk you through them. Number one says dots. Dots is basically using a pencil to create 4 dots in the shape of a square. This is going to help you with your border. And you don't have to be exact. It's just kind of a guesstimate on where your 4 dots are going to be. Number 2 says string. String is done in pencil. It says connect your dots with pencil to create a square. Once again, this does not have to be a perfectly straight line. I am just connecting those dots that I made with a square, and it's okay if it's not perfect. This is just creating a border for my Zentangle. Our next step is to add the string. Number 3 says use pencil to add a string inside of your square. Wavy, curved, closed, open, or bounce. You can refer back to our handout on what the differences are between those, but you're going to want to pick one of those strings to add into the border that you've just created. I think I'm going to go with the closed. So once again, lightly in pencil, doesn't have to be perfect. I have just added my string. Step number 3 says tangles in Sharpie. Use Sharpie to create tangles in areas created by the string. So this area right here would be one tangle. This area right here would be another, and this would be another. So right now I have 1, 2, 3 areas for tangles. If I'm not satisfied with only doing 3, I could add another one of those designs, but I'm pretty happy with 3. So I'm going to stick with 3. Tangle patterns can be pretty complex or they can be simplified. In this handout, I have shown you a variety of tangle patterns that you can follow step by step. So these are pretty easy for you to follow along step by step to get those exact patterns. There's some on the back as well. I also have a Zentangle binder, and this binder has a bunch of Zentangle patterns and tangle ideas, but these do not have step-by-step instructions. So these ones you kind of have to look at and figure out how they work on your own. And if you want to take something out of the binder, you can. You can take the page out, but please make sure that you keep it in the page protector and that it goes back in the binder when you're finished. Remember that when we do the tangle, we start right away with Sharpie. We do not want to use a pencil because the point of the tangles is to make us really focus on what we are doing. And if we use our Sharpies, we will know that we can't erase them. So if we make a mistake, we have to turn it into something that does work. I'm going to start with this hollybaugh tangle in the top right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow these step by steps. And once again, remember I have to use Sharpie. And I'm going to stay within the boundaries that I have created with my border and with my string. So if I'm looking here, I notice that I am going to make a series of parallel lines that kind of create a stick shape. And then if I look, I can see that they have to overlap. So my next string should not intersect. It should stop, start, and pick up again. And I'm going to continue with this pattern all the way through this area here. I'm going to be starting and stopping in multiple directions, making sure that I am not intersecting, that I am showing overlap with my lines. So I'm going to pause and catch up. Now that I have finished the step of continually crisscrossing my stick shapes, I can see that now the background area is going to be filled in a solid black. So I can switch to my thicker Sharpie, and I'm really just going to pay attention to where the background is, and I'm going to be filling in that background black. So all of the areas that are behind the stick shapes that I've made, I'm going to be filling in black. So I'm going to pause and catch up. Now that I have taken my time to fill in my first tangle, I need to choose 2 other tangles to go in here. And I would do the same exact thing. Using a Sharpie, not a pencil, I can pick from one of these examples that show me step by step how to do it, or I could come up with my own idea or use the binder. So I'm going to take a minute and fill in these 2 areas with different tangles. So I just finished my tangle number 2, which I chose Puffo, and that took a while. So I'm going to try to choose a little bit more of a simple pattern for my last area of tangle. Now that I have completely finished my Zentangle, step number 5 is optional. It says step number 5, you can shade areas using pencil. So if I wanted to go back into any of these areas, I could shade to show depth, but I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. So the last step I need is to just make sure that I don't have any of those visible pencil lines left on my borders. So I'm just going to kind of erase my edges to help me get rid of those lines. And then number 5 up here is initials and date with Sharpie. So you're going to use Sharpie to add initials and date in the bottom right corner. And you need to make sure that that is outside of your box. So every Zentangle has initials. So I'm SD, and then it usually has the date. And I'm just going to do a dash and an 18 to say that I did this in the year 2018. So this is a black and white Zentangle. Your other choice for this project is to create that tissue paper mosaic that we talked about. So you would repeat the same steps that we just did, but you would be doing it instead of white paper, you would be doing it on top of an overhead transparency. And some of these overhead transparencies are kind of soft and shiny on one side and kind of rough on the other. And you're going to want to make sure that you're using that Sharpie on the soft side. So I'm going to go ahead and take a minute to do a Zentangle on the overhead transparency. So this is a finished example of the Zentangle on the overhead transparency, but once again, you need to make sure that you initial and date it outside of the border. If your transparency has a little white strip on it, that white strip can be peeled off. The next video will show you how you can cut strips or shapes of colored tissue paper and glue those to the back of your Zentangle project. And then that's how we create that stained glass mosaic effect. So the next video will show you how you can cut the shapes of the tissue paper, how they can be glued behind your project to create a more colorful Zentangle project.